From Africa to the Middle East, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly pushing a controversial new proposal to fully reoccupy the Gaza Strip. If approved, the move would mark a dramatic escalation in the nearly 2-year-long conflict and draw criticism home and abroad. I will have more details in this report.
Say Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Israeli media say Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is preparing to present a bold and divisive plan to a security cabinet, a full military reoccupation of the Gaza Strip. Local journalists quote a senior official declaring, quote, "The die has been cast. We are going for the full conquest of Gaza and defeating Hamas." But the plan has met strong opposition from some top Israeli military commanders. When asked about the dissent, the unnamed senior official reportedly said, quote, "If that doesn't work for the chief of staff, he should resign." For families of hostages, the plan is a nightmare. Around 20 of the remaining 50 Israeli hostages are believed to be alive. Their loved ones fear that a full invasion could cost them their lives. Public opinion appears to echo those concerns, with recent polls showing 3 out of 4 Israelis supporting a ceasefire deal over further fighting. The proposed move is also drawing backlash from Israel's closest allies, who are pushing for an end to the war and calling attention to the worsening humanitarian crisis. Some 90% of Gaza's 2.1 million people have been displaced and many are starving. Aid agencies accuse Israel of blocking life-saving relief. Meanwhile, Israel is still reeling from new hostage videos released by Hamas showing 2 emaciated captives from the October 7th Nova Festival attack. One is seen digging his own grave. The shocking images have intensified public pressure on Netanyahu to strike a deal. Israel's military already controls 75% of Gaza, but the new plan would involve entering dense central zones, home to over 2 million civilians. In some areas, operations had previously been paused due to the risk of hostages. The Palestinian Authority and international observers are warning against any new occupation. In 2005, Israel withdrew from Gaza. But now, with far-right ministers openly calling for new Jewish settlements, critics fear history could reverse. The reoccupation push comes just as international momentum builds for 2-state solution. The UK, Canada and France have voiced support for recognizing a Palestinian state with Gaza as part of it. Netanyahu's gamble, analysts say, could reshape the region or backfire completely. His critics accuse him of dragging out the war for political survival. Israel's Army Radio reports that military discussions are already underway to surround key refugee camps and launch new strikes. A full cabinet meeting is expected later this week, one that could decide the next and perhaps most consequential chapter in this devastating war.
Global Affairs analyst Kachi Ononuju joins me live for more on this. Good to have you join us, Mr. Ononuju.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm very sure you've heard this latest report of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu proposing to now fully reoccupy the Gaza Strip when he meets his security cabinet during the week. And this is amid global outcry about the starvation in Gaza. I just want to get your reaction to this latest move.
I am not surprised at this announcement. This was one of his originally stated goals. So with a rise in demands by the occupiers and the settlers asking for new settlements to be built in Gaza, of course, what do you expect Netanyahu to do? He will formally announce this previously held plans. This is not a new plan. This is an old plan of trying to create a greater Israel. It will include taking part this Gaza, going into parts of Lebanon, going into parts of Syria, and the expansion is all over the place. So it doesn't surprise anybody. The Americans have tried to hint at it, and the world said, no, America, you can't go in there to occupy it. So Israel thinks, if Americans can go there, we can go there. And that's what you're saying. So for me, I'm not surprised at the announcement. This is originally his plan of trying to create a greater Israel. He said this before, he written it in his books. So I am not surprised at it. How he's going to do it is how I do not know. So he makes the announcement,
we listen to him. How this will be done, Mr. Anonuju, I mean, we're talking about a region where, especially, people have already started talking about just how dire the humanitarian crisis there is, the starvation, the pictures and videos coming from there are quite damning and just painful to watch. But then what would this mean for civilians and for the operations of the UN and other aid groups in Gaza?
Israel doesn't care about what you're talking about, the fate of the civilian. They don't care. What they care about is the land. And so if they say that they will make sure that Hamas doesn't come back, of course, they've done what they've done, and Hamas is still not defeated. And so the only way to make sure Hamas doesn't come back is to occupy the land. And that's what he's announced. He will occupy the land, and then as a strategy to have Israeli forces, Israeli citizens, and Israeli settlers on the land. And he thinks that's the only way he can maintain control by securing it so that Hamas doesn't return to it, since he has not yet been able to defeat Hamas. All his costs are dispersal. But you see, that's a problem to this. We do not yet know the fate of the remaining hostages. And so what I will tell to the families and those who look about the news of those hostages, this is the original plan. This is the plan the U.S. suggested, and the world said, no, U.S., you can't go on and do the occupation. Israel is now telling you that they will do the occupation themselves. So
that's a very interesting point you raised, Mr. Anonuju. Apologies for butting in, because you've talked about how this is the plan that the U.S. wanted to carry out. I remember President Trump talking about building hotels and accommodation in Gaza. But then how would you then react to Israeli security chiefs who have now written to President Trump, asking him to pressure Prime Minister Netanyahu to end the war? Do you think President Trump would favor a ceasefire or an effort to decimate Hamas, which the U.S. has designated a terrorist group?
Well, it's not about Hamas. It's about Israel's behavior in the territories. It is Israel's behavior in the territories that forces the reactions, which you now call Hamas. Whether it's Hezbollah or Hamas, those are simple reactions. The real issue is Israel's behavior in this land.
I get that point,
Israel's
Mr.
probably doing this to forestall any
my apologies. But I wanted to, what my question really is, if Trump himself had an idea to build hotels in Gaza, and then we're having military chiefs or military men in Israel now sending him a message to say, call Netanyahu to order, as it were. Is that an effort in futility?
No, it simply tells you that the entirety of Israeli population and society are not with Mr. Netanyahu in his hawkish move. You know, this has been there right from the word go. And not everybody in Israel is with him on this plan. That's why it was said, okay, if Israel wouldn't go there, he wouldn't be allowed to go there, and it would be very, very difficult to sell that to the international agreements. Let Americans come, and Americans say no. So as you know, hearing the discussions at the UN about how some countries, Spain, France, will unilaterally recognize the Palestinian territories as a separate entity, politically and legally, Israel now thinks it should now move in. If the American plans are not going to go on, let its own plan go on. This is the original plan from the word go. Okay, if he's talking about Hamas, and now that it's been seen that Israel has not been able to defeat Hamas, Hamas has dispersed and simply relocated. So what he's telling you now, if the world refuses Trump's plan of America occupying the Gaza Strip and then turning it into a casino, El Dorado, and Utopia, Israel itself will do the occupation. That's what he's telling you. Okay? If you're refusing for Americans to come and take it over, the Israelis will take it over. Don't forget, you're talking about land very rich in hydrocarbons, very, very incredibly rich with gas. So Israel just wouldn't allow such very rich territory to sprout into prospective populations right on its border. What he's trying to tell you, it doesn't agree with the two-state solution. So those discussing at the United Nations about formally going on to recognize Palestine as a state, Israel is now telling you it will occupy this space.
Well, we'll see how this plays on. We saw how unpredictable President Trump was with the Iran-Israel crisis or conflict. We'll see how he responds to this as well. Thank you so much for your time, as always. Global Affairs Analyst Kash Ononoju.